Hello. Hello, I'm Jeremy, and I am making one long video today. I have two things that I want to go over. One of them, or I guess three. One of them is kind of a little follow-up on the amazing Lucas. I've made a couple of videos about him recently, and it looks like he's kind of going downhill a little bit, that he's kind of preaching some misinformation. I don't know if it's intentional or not. I was reading some of the comments, and apparently this is something that's been going on for a while. He's losing subscribers. They're claiming that he's got some other kind of motive going on. I don't know about any of that. I haven't kept up with it, but I came across this gentleman here where he was making YouTube videos, and it's being brought to his attention. So I'll have links in the description below for a lot of this stuff. This channel is called the Officer Tatum, and this video specifically is called I'm So Confused Right Now. And he's going to talk about the amazing Lucas for a little bit. Then he's going to talk about police officers, and I'm going to show a little video with Tim Pool where he makes a good little point. He comes across this letter that's kind of going viral that might be a cop, about kind of what people expect from cops, this fantasy thing versus reality. And then we're going to talk about reparations at the end. I already filmed this, and for some reason OBS just said, screw you, I'm not cooperating. And it's like, oh gee, thanks. So go number two. I'll have links in the description for Officer Tatum here, and I think that might be it. If there's any more, I'll announce it as we go through. If you like what I'm doing, oh, and we're also going to have this up with reparations. And so if you know me and you've been watching me, you know that I do this. I have these little word pads that it's just information about what's going on. Wikipedia is just full of nonsense. They have a group of people that kind of have final say for no reason whatsoever. They're just kind of randomly chosen. And so if they don't like something, if they don't like a narrative, they'll just go in and change it. And they've done this before with Joe Biden while he was running for election. I think it was him. I don't think it was Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden. But they literally changed the definition because of the way that he worded it during his campaign, which was complete trash. It was garbage. But they did it for whatever reasons. I don't know why. It's wrong. It's outdated, and I have a much better system in place, or I'm going to build a better system that I'll have in place, and it's going to eliminate all of this nonsense. So I'm not here to change your minds with any of this stuff. That is not it. So I don't care if you agree or disagree with me. It's about one thing. It's about showing that there are all these lies all over the place. And I don't care if they're intentionally lying or not. It's just that they're there, and I'm tired of going around in circles. I would like it if we did a better job of moving forward. So if you like all this stuff and you don't want to be lied to, and you would like especially these larger scale lies to be dealt with, tired of the virtue signaling, which is it's like a trend that's going on now, it seems like, then give me a like, a thumbs up, subscribe. I've got Patreon and Subscribe Star. Do it because that's what I have going. It's what I need. It's my options that I have right now currently. You may not like YouTube or whatever platform. It's like, I need this. So you're doing it for me. So thanks. So let's go ahead and get into this. And so this channel, the Officer Tatum, he was a former police officer, and so he's got a few things to say, and he's educated me on quite a few things, so that's why I decided to make a video about it. We'll start off with the amazing Lucas.
How are people so ignorant? So this was brought to my attention of a scenario, and I'm gonna put this up on the screen. And I just feel like going off today. Can I go off? Can I go off today? I'm finna go off. So somebody sent me this video of this failed YouTuber, and I'm gonna go and put his name in here. I'm gonna address this with it. So somebody sent me this from Amazing Lucas, which he's losing subscribers by the tens of thousands, and get ratioed on his videos that he's making. Right? Ratio. See, rates that mean ratio. Yeah.
So I don't know what this is. Over here, it has to the side a yellow percentage, a red percentage. I think it's percentage red, yellow, yellow, red, red. I don't know what this is. If anyone happens to know, could you leave a comment down below? I don't know if this is a feature of YouTube that I am just missing, or if this is an additional software component that he's downloaded so it'll do this. I have no clue whatsoever. So if you have any ideas, let me know, because I would like to know this myself. I think this would be kind of beneficial to be able to see kind of who's getting good stuff out there, who's not, and why. You know, all the normal questions.
That means a lot of people dislike you. 41% people like your stuff. So that means most people don't even like your stuff. So let's go to this video that somebody brought to my attention, maybe by this guy who made it. Now, I try not to give anybody credit because I don't want to waste my audience time. But I got to talk about these things. This brain dead person made a video of a white guy. And I'm gonna play it. You hear the sound? You didn't even hear the sound. Of a white guy. The cop is there. White guy's there. He drives away. He didn't get shot. Right? He didn't get shot. He drives away. He ends up getting detained. Why am I talking about this? Because you have people like this amazing Lucas guy and others who are just, their whole brain is gone. And people are dumb enough to think that officers who are putting their life on the line is evaluating the situation and saying, well, he could kill me, but he's white, so everything's fine. I'm going to just let him drive off in the car, me in the window, and everything's fine. Because he's white, I'm not going to shoot him. I have some compassion because he's white, even though he's trying to kill me, and I'm going to lose my life and my family and everything, whatever. But because he's white, I'm not going to hurt him.
If you could do me another favor too, did it pause right then? Because I minimized the video, and I think it paused on OBS on the recording. I think I have to actually have the video up. So could you leave a little comment if that happened? That would help me out, so I don't have to actually do it myself.
Stupidest arguments I ever hear is these people going, well, see, they shoot black people when they do stuff, but they don't shoot white people when they like mass shootings. Do you know how dumb you sound? That's not even a real argument. If you are to think that a cop puts on a uniform, goes out into the community, and is facing a life and death situation, and says, because this person is white, I'm willing to lose my life because they're white. Don't have white power, dude. I'm just gonna risk it all because the guy who's in front of me is white. But if you black, I'm afraid, and I'm not gonna risk it. Let me show you something. Let me show you something. Because I think we need to see this. Let me show y'all something. And this is exactly why.
And he's absolutely right. So one of these other word pads that I have, it's Black Lives Matter, because I think they're just a bunch of activists. I've talked about this before. If you really want to have a lot of money, if you want to have a good paying job, or if you just want to raise a lot of money for yourself, become some kind of activist, do some kind of charity work, fundraisers stuff or whatever. There's a lot of money involved with that, and they pay the administrative people and all their friends and family who are involved with all this, they pay them more money than actually giving the donations out to actually do something fruitful with all that, which is hard. It's like, it's not easy to fix problems, because if they were, then we would have had a lot more of these issues solved by now. And so I did add to this a little bit. I'm not going to show it because this isn't primarily what we're at, but next time we do another little Black Lives segment, I'll show this all again and go over it. But to kind of summarize what he says, no officer thinks that just because that the person that they are dealing with just happens to be the same race as them, that they're going to treat them less seriously, that they want to risk getting killed in a life and death situation. Who does that? He's absolutely right. Whenever I was working out there at the prison, I didn't think that at all. I didn't know anybody. It's like, oh, well, this is a white guy. I can let my guard down. It's like, no. I worked at a level 5 maximum security prison. And they had GP, general population, PAMIO, which were the crazies, who were also violent. And then you had high security. And in high security, they had a good representation, about an equal representation of blacks, Hispanics, and whites. And they're all violent. That's why they're in there, because they are so out of control for whatever reasons that they're locked up for 23 hours a day, and they get 1 hour of rec. And this is only if they have the staff to be able to put them out at rec, which is 1 hour, one at a time, in a cage. It's roughly the size of half of a basketball court, and they've got a little basketball goal in there, and they can have a ball, but it's completely caged off. From top to bottom, left to right, completely caged off. So yeah, I have never heard anybody ever say, well, I don't care. I'm Mexican, they're Mexican, nothing's going to happen. Or I'm black, they're black, nothing's going to happen. Or I'm white, they're white, nothing's going to... Never! Never! These people are stupid. They're insane. They're out of their minds. Everybody thinks the same thing. I don't want anything to do with any of them. That's it. Because if you've made it, if this is where your life is taking you for whatever reasons, something's wrong with you. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. That doesn't play a factor. It's what's going on inside here. So I completely agree.
This because they white, I'm just gonna let them do whatever they want to do. Or because they're non-black. You can say non-black, you can say whatever you want. I'm gonna play this video, and I played it before. Horrifying video. But I need to prove the point. That, oh, it's just because they black, they just automatically getting confounded. Alright, look at this. Y'all seen this video before. A horrific video.
And so what we have here is we have an officer in the top corner here. He's getting out of his police vehicle, and he's got his body cam on. So this is his body cam footage up here in the top corner over here. And then the main larger screen here is the video camera footage from his vehicle on his dash cam right there.
I'm not going to play the sound. So he goes into this car. I can put a little bit of sound. He walks into the car. I say good tactics. You don't want to be on the side of the road where the car's at. Gotta get out, push you in traffic. You come on this side.
You mind opening the door? Or if you want to hold down the window more?
And so he gives a critique over the officer and how he's handling it.
Thank you. So I'll be back to the car in a second.
And he talks about how whenever you're dealing with somebody that you need to be confident, that you don't want to be sloppy with any of this stuff because they are testing you and they are looking at to see how competent you are. And it's like, absolutely right. This was the same experience whenever I was working at the prison.
I mean, you got it's different. It's a different tone. And then they know that this cop ain't really, his officer safety is heightened. I gotta watch what I'm doing. So let's just watch this forward.
Yeah, and it's because if they are looking to do something, they're not thinking, I'm going to go down in a blaze of glory and commit suicide. That's not what most of these people are thinking. They're looking, I got to make my mark for some reason. You know, like with gang affiliation, maybe you have to shoot at somebody or kill somebody to be accepted into the gang. That is something that happens. They don't want to get shot in return. They don't want to get killed in return. And so if you look like that, you're fat and lazy, if you're just unprofessional or whatever, they're going to be like, this is as easy as it's going to get. This is my mark. This is who I'm going to take. And this happens all the time with offenders. It just depends. Whenever you show yourself to be confident, it goes a long way. So whenever I went through the academy, there was this woman who was 79 years old, and she turned 80 in the middle of the academy. It was only like a month or two long. It wasn't very long. It was a joke. It was absolute trash, all of it. And she went off to Pameo. And I ended up seeing her just kind of walking around about a month or two afterwards whenever we were actually on duty. So after about a month or two of actually working, I saw her walking around, and she was just telling offenders off left and right, and she just did not care. And she was telling them off. She was telling them to get out of your way or whatever. I forgot exactly what she was doing, but she just did not give a flip. And it was at that moment that I realized that it wasn't so much about the person as it was about the uniform. That whenever you assault an officer, and it's an officer, it's not the color of your skin, man, woman, or anything like that. It's an officer. You get heightened charges pressed against you for assaulting an officer. And so you should kind of walk around with confidence because you do have that behind you. And also, thinking about it a little bit more, it would be worse. It does play a factor a little bit. They're not going to be able to do anything to an 80-year-old woman. If they did something to her, that would be like another mark. She was also like this thin, and she was like this tall. She was just a walking piece of string. She was incredibly short, incredibly thin. Of course, she knew it, and she just did not care. That's why whenever I first started working there, my first problems were with the offenders. It was trying to get them to comply and to do whatever, and after that, I realized, well, I bet if I really kind of learn the rules and how to write them up, that I'm going to have more compliance with them. Because word's going to get around. The offenders don't really have much of anything to do. They obviously 100% are talking about officers a lot because they want to know who the officers are that they can get away with things. And it happened all the time. And this is why I had problems with officers later. At first, I focused on worrying about the offenders. And so I learned how to write them up. Because if you could put 3 cases on them, then that would put them on high security, and then they really had to kind of watch their P's and Q's, because the next place after that was high security. And that was a really different beast. And so they really kind of watched themselves there. Nobody really wanted to be in high security. So I learned how to do 3 of them, and 2 of them were usually always pretty easy to do. One was to write them up for disobeying an order from an officer. A second one was for being out of place, and then the third write-up was whatever the situation was kind of entailing. And I would tell them, I'm not here to be a RoboCop and to just make your life miserable. You're already here. You're already getting your punishment. But I don't have, and pardon my French on this, but I don't have bitch tattooed anywhere on my body. So if you think that's what's going to happen, I got something else for you, because that's not going to work out for you at all. And yeah, it wasn't too long after I kind of started to assert myself that a lot of this nonsense stopped. It didn't stop completely, because some of them, they're just not all there. And so you still kind of had to deal with them a little bit, and you kind of figured out who was who. And that's why later I had more problems with the officers instead of the inmates, because the inmates knew who to target. They knew, oh yeah, this officer, they'll do this and they'll do that, or they'll go off and do this thing or whatever. They don't really ride up. They're overly friendly. They're friendly officer or whatever. And it became really annoying, because that made our job more difficult. It made it harder. And it's like, no, I'm not here for this. I'm not here to make it horrible for them, but I'm not here to make it horrible for me either. I just want to be able to do my job. I want to do it well. And then that's it. Because every now and then there would be an officer where, oh yeah, I've got this uniform on, and they're going to have to say and do what I tell them to. They'd push it too far, and they'd get jumped. They'd get beat down. It's like, I'm not looking for that. There was one where she was a woman who was about maybe 10 years older than me. She was all messed up, because she was one of those people where she pushed it too far and got the crap beat out of her. There was another one where it was a younger Hispanic guy. He was about 19 years old. And he just thought he was just the bomb, and he talked to the wrong inmate on the wrong day, wrong place, wrong time, all that kind of stuff, and got beat down. They always made it perfectly clear that the inmates let us run that facility, because they outnumber you like roughly 100 to 1, because on a pod you can have up to, I think it was 140 inmates per pod, and there's 2 officers, one on the ground, one up in kind of this little turret kind of tower thing. It's like, yeah, you're outnumbered. So if they want to take the facility, they can. But I understand what he's talking about. Yes, you want to go out and you want to deal in this situation with confidence. And he talks a little bit more about how you don't have anything to worry with the law, with officers.
Horrible clip, but this is proving my point. And I'll play a couple more.
Yeah, I know you got 10 tags, you got a registration with you. All you need registration and driver's license.
So it seems like a regular average stop. Any guns, you have any weapons in the car, I should know about. Therefore, what it does is it gives this day.
Okay.
I think what he did as far as trying to talk to the guy and telling him to get the gun off of him, whatever, that was textbook. For my safety, your safety is textbook.
Yeah, and so what he's talking about is that he was talking about that one of the first things that you should do whenever you're coming up to any kind of situation is just ask if you have any kind of contraband, any kind of firearms, drugs, whatever, just anything. Because you want them to be able to divulge that so you can have a heightened sense of awareness if you need to. My answer to that would be, if I had a gun that was out, I don't even have a gun, but if I did, and they could see it, I would absolutely tell them about it and be like, yeah, hey, it's you got nothing to worry about. I would do everything in my power to kind of ease them. It's like, no, it's okay. My life is together. I've got too much to lose. I'm not going to do anything stupid. And if he wanted it, I would absolutely give it to him. I would have no problems with it, because he can't take it. And so the guy gets on out, and he's got it in hand right there.
I don't know why this guy did what he did. what he's about to do. I don't know why. You never know why. There's never a rhyme or reason. And this is what makes me mad with people in law enforcement when they criticize officers. You never know what these people are thinking. This ain't a black man. Somehow he can't do nothing because he ain't black. Look at.
Yeah, that's dumb. That's a great point. And this is something that Wikipedia doesn't have. It doesn't have stuff like this. This happens all the time whenever I'm watching videos and reading articles, is that somebody, out of the whole thing, they might just have one thing where they just knock it out of the park. And the rest of it might be nonsense, or maybe it's something that you've heard a billion times. You're not going to find anything like what he just said. What, you think that the cops are just going to let their guard down because they happen to be the same race? Who's that stupid?
What he's about to do. I mean, I don't know what this officer was seeing and observing, but from what I see, it doesn't seem like this guy is in a position to want to take it all away right now. All he said was, hey, let me just. The cop didn't even want to run the gun. He just said, hey, man, let me take it out. Why we talk for my safety indoors? We communicate and I give it back to you. This guy did this. He shoots the officer. Shoots him. Why? Random. He didn't say nothing. He didn't do nothing. This officer don't look like.
Yeah, and so I want to move on to Tim Pool here, where he makes a really good case for what's going on here. Let me pull that up. All right, so here it is. This is Tim Pool. This video is from April 19th, 2021. The title is National Guard Injured from Live Fire in Minnesota After Democrat Maxine Incites Insurrection. And so there's this letter that's going around, supposedly from a cop, and I'll let him say the rest of it.
And now I was reading this letter that's going viral. It's being shared around supposedly from a cop. I'm not showing it because I can't vet it, but there's a good point made in this.
So I don't care. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can vet it or not. If it's a good point, it's a good point. There are some things that it's just blatantly obvious that it's a good point. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about whenever he describes this.
This letter, where the cop says, members of the public expect you to be a medical expert. That if someone's in distress, you know exactly what to look for and what to do. They expect you to understand the psychological effects of mental illness and how to respond to people who are mentally ill. They expect you to be a psychologist. They expect you to be a medical expert. They expect you to use the perfect amount of restraint and force against someone who is resisting. They expect you to be a martial arts master and a marksman. And it's funny. It's a really good point.
Yeah, and so I put this on my WordPad with Black Lives Matter. So I kind of summarized it a little bit here. But what I put is that cops are not medical experts, that if someone is in distress, that you know exactly what to look for and what to do. They expect you to know psychological disorders and how to respond to people who are mentally ill. They expect you to use the perfect amount of restraint, to be a martial arts expert, to be a marksman, to be a doctor, a psychologist, a lawyer, or a judge. It's like they're none of these things. I've talked about this before, that whenever you're dealing with a cop, they're not a lawyer. They did not go to law school. They went to the police academy. So those are two completely separate different things. A cop is there to stop criminal activities and assaults and things of that nature, things that are kind of happening or anything that you admit to. If you don't admit to it and if it's not going on right there, there's nothing that they can do. They just can't make stuff up out of nowhere, and they just can't take your word for it either. There has to be something to it. They have to have probable cause to be able to arrest you. And if they do, then you shut up and you do it and you let the lawyer and the judge deal with it. Not the cop. The cop is not a lawyer. So if you're just having like a dispute, if there's some kind of legal matter that's going on, then that's a civil matter. And you tell the cop, no, everything's fine. We have a civil matter that's going on, and it looks like we might have to lawyer up and go to court. The cop's got nothing to do with that. The cop, again, is not a lawyer or a judge. There's nothing they can do. You can argue and you can yell all that you want. Can't put your hands on somebody, can't spit on somebody, you can't do any kind of a physical assault on somebody, but you can disagree until you're blue in the face. And you can flat out tell the cop that. You can tell the cop, get lost. So what? We're having an argument. So what? Nobody's hitting anybody. We don't need you. Get lost. Now, maybe you do want something from the cop. Maybe you do want them to be as a witness. Maybe you want some kind of a police statement. That's not entirely true, so maybe you do want to have the cop, but if you really don't want to, it's like, yeah, you can tell the cop to get lost. But, I mean, the cop really doesn't have to. The cop can stand there, but they can't make you do anything. If you want to stay there and argue, you can stay there and argue. And cops can lie to you. So if they say that you got to leave, you can say, no, I don't. Absolutely not. However, it probably would be good for you to go ahead and leave anyways. So anyways, let's go ahead and let's continue on with Officer Tatum here.
Like, he's white. He didn't say nothing. He didn't do nothing. I don't know what made this man do this. And he shoots him. And he shoot him. He stand over him and shoot him. They didn't play that part. But he stands over him and shoots this cop. Point blank range. Murders him. And drives away.
Heck yes. This happens. There are black people who murder, and white people, and Hispanic, and Asian, all of them. It's not because you're a certain color that you're just magically not going to do this stuff. It's like, I've never heard of such a thing. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Regular traffic stop. Cop just minding his business. Going up because the man got tags all messed up. Or whatever the case he put.
And so he does talk about, I think I already passed it, where if an officer wants to search your vehicle, to go ahead and let him do it. And that's absolutely wrong. You do not. And that's because they're not helping you find your keys or your cell phone or your wallet or anything like that. They're looking for something bad, some kind of contraband, be it a drug or drugs or a gun, a weapon, a knife, whatever. They're looking for something that, for my safety, can I search the vehicle? It's like, no, you cannot. Because you don't know. It could have been, even if the car was brand new, straight out of the factory, you don't know if somebody put some kind of drug somewhere in it. Or more than likely, is that chances are your vehicle is used. And you don't know anything about the previous owner or owners, because even if it was under just one person's name, chances are they had friends or family, especially family members who were driving it, and you don't know if they had some kind of drugs on them, and they hid it someplace that you would never think of looking. But the officer might know where to look, because that's what cops do. They look for drugs. They search vehicles. And so they might know exactly where to look, and they pull it on out, and then guess who's going to jail? It's going to be whoever's driving that car, whoever's there, and it'll be everyone there who's involved. And you might be completely oblivious to it. You don't ever let them search your car. They are not there to help you at all. So, no.
But y'all dummies. Not y'all perfect. All y'all perfect. But you got dummies out here that are swearing before God that somehow this only happened. Cops are only afraid of black people. Cops are treating black. Man, listen. Cops are leery of everybody who can potentially take their lives. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You're leery of anybody that can take your life. I got to switch screens real quick.
And it was the same thing whenever we were working at the prison. Working out there at the prison, those were people who were already convicted of theft, of rape, of murder. They'd already done it. They were there. Everybody was always on guard. Nobody ever gave a damn about the color of their skin because nobody wanted to die. It's like, it doesn't make it any better if they happen to be the same race of you. Nobody cared.
Anybody that can take your life, you're leery of. And this happens to you in the line of duty for no reason. And it bothers me. So dumb. It's like, see, they just let him go because he's white. And no cop want to end up like this. It breaks my heart to even talk about this. I want to, thank God it ended the way it's about to end. That gave me a little hope. But no cop want to end up like this. I want to put the uniform back on, go out on duty right now, take my AR, put the uniform back on, and go and get.
Yeah, so he is a previous cop. And what ends up happening is that they end up catching him, and they gun him down.
So this is what they do to him.
And he's shooting back.
Hey, what the fuck, man?
Okay, 4th of July. Okay, turned him into a pinata. So, this is what the end result was, which actually made my day. That's what happened to him. And I'm not trying to be mean to them, but hey, this is what happened to you. Let me tell y'all, this is what happened to you when you do an officer like that.
Yeah.
I don't expect nothing less from these men.
Yeah.
I expect nothing less. You get out, you don't comply.
Yeah, because if this guy was crazy enough to do it to a cop, and a cop, in a way, kind of has more legal standing than the normal civilian, what would he do to just normal people? Oh, man, I'm sorry that this had to happen, but it's like, I don't know what the other choices are. You know, the guy just shot a cop, and then he's shooting at these cops.
You lay down your stiff. And I wish they had peed on him while he was down there. Because he was a scumbag, shooting the police officer for no reason. Now,
I don't know about that. I think he's saying that more for just a dramatic effect.
I hope that opened up the stimuli so that you can realize that this ain't about race for police officers. Do what you're supposed to do, you ain't got to worry about it.
Oh, that's right. And so he says that you don't have anything to worry about whenever you're with a cop.
You got an attitude. Why someone may be short with you? Because they don't want to end up like this. And they don't know you. They don't know. This guy had no reason to do what he did. They don't know you. They don't know nothing about you. They don't have to. Do what you're supposed to do. You ain't got to worry about nothing. Now, I'm going to play another video.
Yeah, and so what he's talking about, so I don't know if I've already passed it in the video, but he talks about how every day they get an email talking about some cop somewhere, some officer that had been killed. And so I looked it up, and I thought I was getting my city, but I got the state instead. And it's because I just don't think it happens enough in a city where it's going to be very much. And so the whole state, it's like, yeah, the state's pretty... That has a little bit. It's still not bad. But it is tragic, nonetheless. I mean, obviously. But what I pulled up was from 2021 with all the deaths with officers. And there weren't a lot. I don't even think there were like maybe 50 for... Well, was it? No, it had been 2020 because 2021 just started. It was 2020. Over half of them were COVID. Over half of them were COVID. It was COVID, and it was all officers. It was TDCJ, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. It was State Patrol. It was city cops. It was county sheriffs. It was all of them. And so I didn't like that they were sending these emails off to the officers every single day because it was coming in from all over the nation. That was the only way that you would be able to send out an email every single day. And I see that absolutely no different than every time that there's a mass shooting out there, they want to cry about having more gun regulations. It's like, no, this isn't something that happens all the time, and that's not going to solve the problem. And it's the same thing with this. Just because there's a cop somewhere who got killed, what did they die of? Was it actually from something like this? Because he even talked about with this, he'd never seen anything like this before in his life. It's like, okay, well then, this isn't something that you really need to be that scared about. I think what would be more appropriate is that instead of getting an email every day, how about once a week or maybe once every 2 weeks or just once a month? Yeah, you do need to be reminded. Yes, it is dangerous. Yes, you need to be aware. But you don't need to be so panicky and so afraid that you're just on edge all the time. I think that that's absolutely part of it. He said, I don't know if this is something that they just did just with his, wherever he was serving as an officer, or if this is something that they do across the nation. It should be no. It should be absolutely no. Because the majority of the time, what happens? The majority of the time, people are good people. And you don't need to treat everybody like crap because of a bad apple. Same thing with the gun mass shootings. It's like you don't treat everyone who has a gun as somebody who's some kind of horrible villain person. No. You give people the benefit of the doubt. It's not to say that you just completely roll over, but you have to use some common sense and some restraint.
Because I'm going to lighten the mood up just a little bit. I'm going to try to hit the beat button because there's a lot of cuss words in here.
Oh, so this is funny.
And I don't understand how, like, today, this video would be deemed racist.
Yeah, because this is Chris Rock back in the 90s. He's pretty young in this video.
You know, this one's brain. I'm going to give it a video. But in today's society, this video would be considered hate speech or something. Back then, it was funny. Now, I guess all the videos that I was brain. So I'm going to try to do my best to beat it out because I don't know.
That's how what Chris Rock is. He's a comedian.
And you tell me this real life. Roll the film.
Have you ever been face to face with a police officer and wondered, is he about to kick my ass?
I can't.
Well, no more. If you follow these easy tips, you'll be fine. First, obey the law. Laws are made for a reason. Think of them as hits. You heard people say, man, I wouldn't do that with you. Well, here's some of that shit. Carjacking, armed robbery, arson, selling drugs, buying drugs, stabbing, shooting. You know, you probably won't get your ass if you just use common sense.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I've talked about this before. Is that whenever you're a criminal, you can't call the police for your criminal activities. So if you're a drug dealer and you get robbed and people come and take your drugs and your drug money, they can't call the police and say that. They can't do anything. They can't say, hey, I was just robbed and they took all of my drugs and my drug money and I need them found and arrested. They can't. They'll get arrested. Yeah, they might actually try and find these people and arrest them too, but the person who called, they're also going to get arrested. Or, hey, officer, police, I just called 911 here because I came up and I got into a fight with someone and then they ended up beating me up instead. I want to claim assault. It's like they're going to get arrested because they're the ones who started the fight. Whoever's the person who breaks the law, you can't do anything. This not only applies for people, but it also applies for the cops. What are the cops going to do? Oh, hey, I illegally took your gun or whatever it is that you had. They have to give it back. They will lose, not only can they end up going to court and going to jail, but they will lose their job. You know, if that happens to us, we're not going to lose our job. They will, because they're the cop. So whenever you get pulled over, that's not the time for you to be an activist. That's not the time for you to be an individual. That's not the time for you to just do and say and whatever you want. That's whenever you need to hold to it more than ever. You need to do exactly what you're supposed to do. And a lot of the times, it's doing what the officer said. So there was that one video of this black man who was in the military. He was a lieutenant, and he got pulled over because he didn't have tags on the back of his vehicle. But he did. They just weren't there because he just bought the car. Instead, it was taped up in the window, and they missed it. And this officer is arguing with them, and he's not complying with orders. It's like, that's just giving the officers fuel for being able to treat you like trash. And as an officer who's in the military, you don't even get to do that. Because I was a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout, and they flat out told you that you could end up getting shot for that. Because if you're not going and doing what you're supposed to do, somebody else could be getting killed and getting shot because you're not there to cover them because you're not doing your job. And it's like, so if anybody should have been aware of that, hyper aware of that, it should have been somebody in the military. And so none of that looked good on him where he's not complying. It's like, so what? So you step out of the car. So they put cuffs on you. So what? They can't do anything. What are they going to do? Take you to prison? For what? Lock you up in jail? For what? They can't do it just because they feel like it. They have to have reasonable cause. And if they don't, if they do and they just make it up, you know what happens? They're going to get locked up. They're going to get fined. They're going to lose their job. That's why you comply. Even though it might be complete BS, and it was, they had no business pulling that lieutenant over. But for whatever reasons, I guess they're blind, and they did have attitude problems. They were trash in that. You do what you're supposed to do.
Now today, if somebody played that, they'll go off and cry and everything else. Anyway, this is satire for Chris Rock. You can go look it up. But he goes through, he talks about riding the car, turning down the music, not confronting police, obeying, not having drugs on you and all that kind of stuff. I don't want that. There's too much cussing in. But if you want to look at it, you can. If you played that today,
Chris Rock.
People would be crying right now. And eventually I'm going to make a video and I'm going to blur it all out and I'm going to do commentaries. 9 times out of 10, you will not get hurt. Let me get some of these super chats because I see that the system is still messing up, so I better get...
Yeah, a lot of it is that you just have to do what you're supposed to. And yeah, the majority of the time, 99% of the time, absolutely nothing's going to happen to you. You just have to do what you're supposed to do and be verbal about it. If there is a gun and it is there, tell them, yes, I do have a gun. I'm not going to do anything. I've got too much going for me that I'm not going to jeopardize it, So reassure the officer because this stuff does happen where some guy just pulls out a gun and kills you.
We grab these before it's too late. Okay, first, lightly tap that like button. I appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Y'all hit that like button. Did it say sunshine? Sunshine. Jeremiah, baby, thank you so much. He was on the way to a drug deal and was armed and dangerous. That is the brass knew about this. Just told the officer to pull him over and make the ID. That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
If they got that man served like that, that ain't right.
Yeah.
And you never pull over a person like yourself, especially if they're armed and dangerous like that.
Yeah.
Let me get to a couple things. I think that's showing up here, so I'm gonna save them. I just want to get the ones so I don't miss them. I appreciate all you do. God bless you. All who come through Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I appreciate it. All right, let's get back to the subject at hand. The biggest lie that I've ever heard in my life is police acting just like me. It's not true. It's just not true. And I wish it was true because
and today, now we have body cams and we have dashboard mounted cams, so it makes it incredibly hard. Whenever I was growing up, didn't have that stuff, but today they do. So it's like, good luck. And I think anytime that video footage isn't available, I tell you what, just slam all over the police and the government and all that stuff. It should be there. It should be working. It should be great. There should be more than one. So
efforts we can unite on and actually fix it. The problem is this is not true, so you can't fix it. Because you can't fix something that's not true. If there's not an epidemic of black people getting gunned down by police, all of these efforts that they're trying to do, what they claim they're doing, is in vain. It's not going to change.
Yes, and that is exactly what it is that I'm trying to do here. I'm tired of these lies. I'm tired of going around doing nothing with nothing. It's just a bunch of nothing on top of nothing. It's like it doesn't do anything.
I can go down a list of videos of black people just resisting arrest, fighting, pulling guns, shooting, doing all kinds of stuff against police officers. I can show you a whole list of them. But nobody wants to talk about that. I see the guy today, I play football with him. Just whack, man. Just people are just whack. And I don't get how people are that whack. I'm gonna try to pull up this thing while I'm sitting here.
I think part of it is that there is money involved and they see a chance to get money. I think part of it too is that people are just misinformed. The media just lies all the time, and so do Republicans and Democrats. They're all just lying all the time, and they're taking advantage of everybody, and they're lining their pockets and at the same time.
This dude I play football with, I scroll through and I see this. Don't shoot is just cardio. We're doing cardio.
Oh yeah, that
the situation's wrong. They can't do that. That ain't true. Arbery wasn't jogging. He wasn't doing cardio.
Yeah, so I know a little bit about that. It's where this guy was like 8 miles away, and supposedly the claim was that he was jogging all the way there, but he was just in kind of clothes. So for example, he did not have on running gear at all. I run. I ran cross country in high school. I ran like crazy in the Army. I still run. I was up to 26 miles a week not too long ago, and then I had a little injury. And he was wearing like some denim jeans or some denim shorts. You can't run in those because your legs are just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you get friction right there. And if you have some kind of hard material, you're gonna chafe. Period. I don't give a damn what's going on, because that happens just whenever you have the appropriate running gear on. That happens anyways, and you just have to kind of adjust to it. Nobody runs 8 miles in just regular clothes. That I just never have seen that. It's just going to eat your skin up. It's going to get hot. It's going to get really hot. It's going to chafe. It can blister. It can bleed. So no, nobody's going to do that. Not for that far, because it was 8 miles, like 8 miles one way and then running back. And then he wasn't sweating at all. It's like you should be drenched. It was so, and I run in the evenings too. I'll run at 11, 12 o'clock night. I've run at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's because I do not care. I am not afraid.
And I'm sure that's a play on this. And I guess they're doing a job for a run for protest. Let me click on this thing. Run for protest. We're going to run for protest. I mean, I wish people were protesting real stuff.
Yeah.
You feel me? Why can't people protest real stuff?
Yeah.
These are dummies. And I know they don't mean to. No, let me say this. I don't know who they are, but what they're doing is dumb. They may not be intimidated, they're blind. But what they're doing is dumb.
Yeah.
This is dumb. This is dumb. What are you doing? You got your fist in the air to do what? We're gonna get yoga pants on and go out and put our fists in the air and let's fight together. And the very people who are right here are talking about the very people who are right here. And right here. And right here and right here. They say our country is fighting systemic racism from white people. Yet they people are right here. Fighting with them on the front line, but yet they're systemic racism. Yeah. How is the country so racist when the majority of the people that's in this march for black people are not black people? But the world is so racist that we gotta fight. But it's bad health. How about instead of putting your fists up talking about I can't breathe, how about you march for better health and awareness?
Yeah, so I know about this. I know that whenever black men get into their 40s, they become extremely high risk for heart disease. It's like, that's great to know. I'm in my 40s. What situations are like that for me? I want to know. Tell me about it. So then that way, hopefully, there's something that can be done about it, and I can do something. So, absolutely right.
But y'all don't care about black people. This is virtue signaling. Because the leading death of, you talk about black people being killed by police officers. First of all, 99.9% of black people that are killed by police officers deserve it. 99.9% of people in general that are killed by police officers deserve to be killed by police officers. Not deserve to be killed. The amount of force used against them is necessary. Their death and them deserving to die had nothing to do with me or any of these officers. It's up to God. God wants you to come home, you're going to be dead.
Yeah, I like that he went back and he changed it, that they didn't deserve to die, because that's nobody wants to think like that. But that the proper amount of use of force was applied, it's like, yeah, that's a lot more neutral. So the proper amount of force on that one guy that we saw was, yes, definitely drawing your guns, and because he's just killed an officer and he's shooting at you. So
if you don't, you'll be like homeboy in Jacob Blake in a wheelchair. God decides whether you deserve to die now. But most of the shootings are justified uses of force. Now, the ones that are not legitimized, that's like 1 a year, 2 or 3, let's say 10 a year. 10 a year. Out of 40 million black people in this country, 10 black people a year are unjustifiably killed by police. There is tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of black people that are dying from heart disease. It's not even close. Look how many people die from
I don't know what it is with black women, but I've heard that with black men. So.
COVID and vaccines or whatever. But they out here doing this. It's in the air. We're jogging from awareness. Let me explain this to y'all. If you are jogging for awareness and you're trying to, who are you trying to make awareness?
Good point.
The people who are already supporting you, the 60% white people that are fighting for Black Lives Matter, you trying to wake them up, or you trying to wake up racists? Well, let me educate you real quick. If you think going to run down the street is going to make a racist go, you know what? I was about to say, call that boy the N-word, but I saw these hippies running down the street, running the 5K, blocking traffic, and I decided I'm not going to call him an N-word. I'm not going to be racist anymore. Sally, man. Let's put that, when we get home, let's burn our Klan hoods. This is, in my opinion, this is how they see it.
Oh, that reminds me of something. I got to show you something. Same exact concept. All right, so I found it. And so what this is an old Bill Burr stand-up comedian. This is a part of his act right here. And so it only is going to be like a minute.
Oh, we have these huge battles. You know what the maddest she ever got at me was? One time she was watching this show, it was like a poor excuse for The View, and they started talking about domestic violence, right? For the 9 millionth time this year, they're talking about domestic violence, just in case, you didn't get the memo, Evidently, just some people didn't get it. It's not okay to slam your wife's head into the cupboard drawers because she didn't dry the can opener off properly, It's gonna fucking rust, right? How do you not know not to do that shit? Do they really have to keep talking about it? Who it's like wife beaters watching? Oh, fuck! Ah! Now I get it. Upset daisy, sweetheart. Here we go. There you go. Oh. So at the end of the hour, they come to the logical conclusion. They're like, there is no reason to hit a woman. There is no reason to hit a woman.
So you can watch the rest of this yourself. You can look it up. This particular one is called Bill Burr. No Reason to Hit a Woman, How Women Argue, full from You People Are All the Same. So I guess that was the name of his special that he's doing right here. You People Are All the Same. He's funny. I think he's a little bit more retired now. I don't think he's going around doing quite the touring that he used to do. He's still pretty funny. He's got a podcast on now. But it just reminded me of exactly what he's saying right here. Same thing.
This is how they see these racists running around. Because they got to be white, because black people can't be racist. Somehow black people can't be racist. They got to be white, and they can't be educated white. They got to be hillbillies. So let's go home after watching them do that march, and let's go burn our hoodies. And let's stop calling them Negroes. Let's change their lives. Because these blue-head hippies were smoking weed running down the street. That just made me want to do something different in my life. I've been racist since my grandfather's grandfather, and I'm going to change today. You know what? That Colin Kaepernick, that man that was raised by them white.
I mean, it's right. I mean, really, what is that going to do? What is that going to do? You march down the streets or you watch something on The View or whatever. It's virtue signaling. And virtue signaling has no merit whatsoever. So you went out and you proclaimed it to the streets. And I don't get it. If you do, then please comment down below and explain it to me. Because I've never heard, or I don't understand what this is supposed to do. I've never heard of it working. I've never heard of it making any kind of change whatsoever at all.
All right, people. He took a knee for that man, and that changed me. I will not be racist in the game. You know what? I was going to go out and pull over a black man on a traffic stop, but I saw that lady, that Black Lives Matter leader, that went up and bought all these houses in the white community. So that to me tell me that she's a good one. It's self-accountability. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Worry about what you are doing.
Oh man, that is it right there. There are people who are doing things in the world that you do not agree with. They're horrible, they're trash, and there's nothing that you can do about it. If the way that you're living is so good, then lead by example. Lead a good life. And this is something that's we're going to get more into with my kind of other channel, my other series that I'm doing, which is his self-development. Something Jordan Peterson talks about. Clean up your room. Take care of yourself. Clean up your life. All aspects of it.
If you want to be great, start at your house. Quit going in the street protesting. Start with you not being a racist. And if you're not a racist, you've done your part. And you can feel what I'm saying. If you see it the way I see it. Crazy dream. They said police officers, you have no choice, but you're biased. And you can't quantify.
We're going to
You
skip ahead
can't
here.
fix it. It didn't come from Africa.
All right, so now he's going to start talking about slavery and reparations. And before we get into it, let's go ahead and look at my sheet over here. So again, as I try to say on a fairly regular basis, it's not about changing your minds. That's not what I'm here for. This is to show that there's just an insanely amount of huge numbers of lies that are going on with people and ideas and projects and just everything. So let's talk about the definition of reparations. And so this is reparations in regards for slavery. This is just what I pulled off of Wikipedia. Wikipedia has problems. So one of the problems is that they have like a group of people where they can go in and look, and they can make changes. They can even kick people off and ban them so that they can't do any more kinds of changes. And it's nonsense, but I gotta use something. And this seems to be fine in this situation. So, is the application of the concept of reparations to victims of slavery and or their descendants. Throughout history, reparations for slavery have been both given by legal rulings in courts and or given voluntarily without court rulings by individuals and institutions. Reparations can take numerous forms, including individual monetary payments, settlements, scholarships, waiving of fees, and systematic initiatives to offset injustices, land-based compensations related to independence, apologies, and acknowledgments of the injustices, token measures such as naming a building after someone or the removal of monuments and renaming of streets that honor slave owners and defenders of slavery. And so the removal of monuments and all that is absolutely ridiculous. Because back then, who were slave owners? It was just about everybody who had money, and they did good and bad alike. There's no such thing as a perfect person. Even today, I'm sure that there will be people who will look back on us and criticize us for what we're doing today as being barbaric and stupid. And it's because it'll be the same thing. They're going to take a look at their lives as what it currently is at that point in time, and they won't understand that, no, life as what we experience right now is not going to be the same as it will be in the future. And that as they look back in the past, those are two different things. You're comparing, watermelons to grapes. They're not the same thing. They're two different things. And so you have to be able to take in a larger picture to take everything into content. So some facts are: slavery ended in the United States in 1865 with the end of the American Civil War and the ratification of the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which declared that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime thereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So you can still kind of be a slave if you break the law. That's what prison is. At that time, an estimated 4 million African Americans were set free. And just to go ahead and to show that I don't care what's going on, I want to call out nonsense wherever it is. And so later in the Wikipedia page there, it says, opposition to slavery reparations is reflected in the general population. In a study conducted by YouGov in 2014, only 37% of Americans believe that slaves should have been provided compensation from the form of cash after being freed. And in parentheses, I put, I don't care what people think or feel at all. If you don't have something to back that up and to support it, I don't care. You can keep that nonsense out of my face. You need to have something to support whether if you think that there should be reparations or if you think that there shouldn't be. And I think that there shouldn't be because money doesn't do anything. It's just a piece of paper. It's paper. Just because you have paper, it doesn't make you smarter. It doesn't give you good morals or values. It doesn't clean up your addictions or your bad habits. It doesn't make you healthy and fit and strong or smart and it does nothing. So I'm more like this gentleman is talking about. Let's do something that's real. And so let's do something like, how can we make people healthier? And why just black people? How about everybody? So no, you can take that and you can just shove it. So, but it's still a study, so I put it underneath studies. And so now this is where he schools me on some things that I didn't know.
Europeans brought that with them when they came to the Americas. And now y'all up in church speaking in tongues, Holy Ghost.
Okay, so right before this, he was talking about how Africans were already selling Africans. And so an example of this is, I'm going to have to pause and find Nancy Pelosi. All right, and so here it is. So what he's talking about is this right here. So here are the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, a few others, and I forget where they're kneeling, I don't care. But they're wearing these scarves things, and they get called out on this. And so they're wearing these kente cloths during their nearly 9 moment of silence in a show against police brutality, and they get questioned for their motives and blasted them for them missing the mark. And it's because these kente cloths, a special fabric with deep meaning, and blah blah blah. However, it fell flat. In this picture, the DC African fabric shop is probably sold out now to meet the demand of this cultural appreciation. Would you get on with it? They're not significant, but the ones that they use, the colors that they have, let me find it. All right, so I had to go further down in the article here. And so, from the ancient history of the Astani kingdom to the Pan-African spread of tradition during the transatlantic slave trade to modern day, is a symbolic and representative. Oh, and it's representative of the history of the Asante people. And so, right here. The Ultimate History Project also emphasized Kente's close history with the Asante people, which is strongly tied to the history of the slave trade. So these that they're specifically wearing are a part of the Ashanti kingdom, which are one of the African kingdoms that would go out and capture other Africans to sell them. Let me help put this into perspective. This was during the 13 colonies, before cowboys and Indians and all this. And this is because this is whenever they had the single shot musket. America couldn't even handle cowboys whenever they had repeating rifles and revolvers, where you could shoot several times. With muskets, it was load up one shot, takes like a minute, and then you shoot. There's no way America had the means to go and to capture any Africans to do any of this stuff. Because you were slow as dirt whenever you might as well have been pond water. It just wasn't moving. You wouldn't have been able to have done this at all. Because the Indians, who also had bows and spears or whatever, just were able to stand pretty strongly against the American army. With cannons and repeating rifles and revolvers. But you think further back in time, whenever weapons were less, that they were able to do this? No, the reason why they were able to do this was because it was Africans doing this to other Africans. And this is what this guy talks about. And this whole nonsense of kneeling like it means something. And this reminds me of another Bill Burr video. So I'm going to show a little part of this too, because of these stupid Democrats and their lying.
Look at Michelle Obama, right? Now she's sitting there holding up those hashtags. Remember that hashtag, bring back our girls? Remember that?
It's like, it blew my mind. It's like, why are you showing me that? I'm a stand-up comedian. Like, what am I gonna do to get
Or
this
anybody.
back? Why don't you look across the dinner table? It's like, you see that guy? That is the leader of the free world. Tell him to pick up a phone, call some Navy SEALs and solve it. What am I gonna do? Show up with a sharpened mic stand? I'm Shelton!
Yeah, it's all virtue signaling. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't do anything. Michelle Obama with her stupid hashtags. These morons taking a knee, or these idiots walking in the streets holding up their fists. It's all nothing. It's trash. Every last bit of it. It's like, do something with your life.
Those feel, where do you think it came from? White people. And I'm not saying white people in general.
And so, he was talking about, just before this, about how it was black people who were enslaving black people.
And they could vote. And some white people couldn't vote.
And so, and then he talks about, at first, black people could own lands and they could vote, and then they changed it where black people couldn't vote.
The white man helped black people become free. The white man has been fighting for black people ever since.
And then he talks about how, okay, well, they changed it so then, even if you were a black landowner, because you had to be a landowner, which means that white people couldn't vote either if you didn't have land. So you had to be a landowner, so it didn't matter if you were black or white. Then they changed it where black people couldn't vote. But then if white people were the only ones who could vote, then who made it so that black people were free? White people did that.
It's the beginning. Ever since the beginning. And black people out here being told that white men hate you. Most slave owners, most white people didn't even own slaves. I mean, I see numbers up to 6%, and I see numbers lower than 2%. I don't.
6 to 2% of the population had slaves. It's like my grandparents or great-great-great-grandparents, they didn't have slaves. You know why? Because they were poor. Most people were poor. You know who did this? Only the rich elite who did it. And only the rich elite who actually had farmlands that needed to be tended to. It wasn't like a gun store owner or somebody who owned a restaurant or cowboys and ranchers. People didn't own slaves, because it's the same thing today. How many people own Lamborghinis or these really nice fancy cars? Not very many, because they're expensive. Well, you know what? Having people is expensive. And if you've had children, you know that having people where you have to take care of them, you have to feed them, clothe them, shelter them, all this stuff, it's not cheap, it's not easy.
I don't know which one is more accurate, but I've never seen nothing higher than like 6%. 6% of white people own slaves. So the rest of them didn't own slaves. They didn't own slaves. But y'all just throwing it out, attributing all this to white people. It's a game, y'all. They're pitting us against each other.
And so the problem with reparations is, okay, well, who's this 2 to 6% of the Americans who had slave owners in their history? Because, maybe I do have like one great aunt who did, and all the rest of them didn't. So what? Do I pay like 6%, 5%, 10%? How much is that? And today, because the Civil War ended so long ago, that black people and white people, it's a pretty high chance that you've got some intermingling going on with all this stuff. So, how do you sort that out? And then what do you do with all the blacks and whites and Asians and everyone else who came over after the Civil War was done and there was no more, where there were no more slave owners? What do you do with the Americans that they were Asian, they came over, they didn't have slaves, but they were still in America, they were still Americans? What about them? How do you sort all that out? And then how do you differentiate between the blacks who have been here and the blacks who have come here afterwards? How do you sort all that out?
There's a difference between good and evil. There were black people that owned slaves too, in America.
And so this is where he really schools me really good right here.
The first legal slave owner in America was a black man. Blew my mind. I looked it up, it blew my mind. Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson, you look it up. Anthony Johnson. And it's funny because I gave you there's fact check on it now. But all right. Let's put up the screen for y'all. So y'all know I'm not making this up. Okay, boom. Let's go right here. Anthony Johnson, 1670. He died in 1670, died at the age of 69 or 70. The colony of Virginia. Known for being one of the first people to legally own a slave in America. The prominent early colonial black person to acquire freedom and wealth. Think about this. This man, it says that he acquired freedom and wealth in the 1600s. Listen, man, they are, I don't know how we ain't looking into this more. They just lying to y'all about slavery, and they paint it in a very different light than what it really was. How the can a black man who was a farmer, one of the first, many people say he was the first. Anthony Johnson was a black, Anglican. I want to say Anglican, known for achieving wealth in the early 17th century. He was one of the first African American property owners and had his rights to legally own a slave recognized by the Virginia court. I just like I don't understand how what was happening here. Look, this man is black. This man was wealthy in the 17th century. He owned slaves. He went to court. I think he had 2 or 3. He had some people that were indentured servants to him. They were indentured servants, and he was able to go to court and sue and to gain legal slave ownership of them. And he won in the court. In court. So a black man in the 1600s went to court to own other black people. And they out here telling y'all that y'all were just in chains. And
Lies, and more lies. I'm glad I found this guy because I had no clue. But here he is. He's pulling it up. He's got it right there.
Slavery was created by the white man. And the white man was just holding you back. The black man was holding you back too. Look at this fool. I'm going to click on the little Wikipedia page. So, and the words are too little. But go look it up for yourself. Because hundreds. You know, I'm never gonna. It never seems to be successful. And he owned slaves. You know, and there was hundreds of black people that owned slaves. Hundreds. No, I'm never gonna. It never seems to amaze me how disingenuous people are. You know, it never seems to amaze me. Go and look up some of these black folks, man. She goes through, if you read, she goes through, she was one of the people that were able to file in court, I believe, and win her own freedom. She was able to petition the court to win her own freedom. And you can go through and read it. It's too much to read. And I'm not a person to read on the spot. Go through and look at it. Elizabeth Freeman. Go and look her up. If you don't believe Brandon Tate, then he's lying. There's a whole bunch of other people. Let's see, who's this person? Look at this right here. Let's pull up another person. This person right here. I think it's Dubucklet. I may be saying his name wrong. Dubucklet? Antonio? Antoine. This gentleman, it says right here, was the state treasurer.
And so he goes on and he pulls up a few others. He finds one where there's a black woman where she becomes the first millionaire in America during this time frame, right through here, as a slave owner. And it's like, you know what, that doesn't matter. Black, white, whatever. It's that slave ownership is bad. It's, yes, the white people who had slaves, horrible. And the black people who had slaves, horrible too. All the way around. Because you know why? Because people are capable of doing evil acts no matter who or where you are. And you're not just magically immune because of the color of your skin. So I'm fed up with all this. I'm tired of the lies. And it's like, you know, just like he didn't know about this. This was just brought to his attention. And he was just looking around right now on this live stream that he was doing. And he found more. It's like, why is this not taught? Why? Because, again, a problem with our education is that they don't go over things that we need to know. And it's incomplete. It's just a certain narrative that they want out there, and it's just a bunch of nothing. So I'm going to add a little bit more on, what's this one called again? Reparations. I'm going to add about these people and their history with slavery, with Anthony, for example, and it's like, because I'm tired of the lies. And he nails it. It's like, why are we just reliving the past and reliving it wrong? How about we do things today? that we know of that can actually make a difference, such as the health, and how about the education of people and everything else, and giving everybody the opportunity to live the lives that they want. And a lot of this is because of the government, and every time that you increase taxes, you increase minimum wage, it makes it more difficult, because it doesn't make people who don't have a job any richer. It doesn't make people who are broke any richer. You've just limited the amount of jobs whenever you do that stuff. You want everything to go down, because there's a limit to that, and that's whenever it hits zero, or whenever you get it for free. So I hope you've liked and enjoyed all this, and you're tired of the lies. If so, then give me a like, a thumbs up, subscribe. I've got Patreon and Subscribe Star. And even if you don't like YouTube or whatever platform, it's about me and the work that I'm doing. If that's what you like, if you like this work and you're tired of being lied to, then help me out. I'd appreciate it. And thanks a lot for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye.